Everybody. This is the Happy-ology podcast with me, Dr. Charlotte McFarlane. This is episode 2, The Power of Authenticity. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about what is authenticity. It's sort of a buzzword in this day and age, but I just wanted to deep dive into that and define it a little bit and how we can show up more authentically in our lives. And even deeper to that, how do we identify the authentic self? So what is authenticity? Like I said, it is kind of that buzzword that's been around in the last, few years maybe. And, it's sort of like, I gotta be authentic. I gotta be me. And there's kind of this interesting phenomenon I've observed, the inauthentic authenticity, where when we try too hard to be authentic, we can end up being inauthentic because we're trying to affect a certain way of being. And what I mean by that is we can sometimes have an expectation, and whether that's our expectation of ourselves or a societal expectations from our parents or our friends of how we are, how we should be. When we fall into the trap, I think, of trying to fulfill those expectations, we might think that we're being authentic to ourselves, but I don't think we can actually be authentic if we have an expectation. So what I mean is that for us to show up authentically, really, to me, it means always just being so for me, authenticity means being yourself in the moment. So the idea of, in the moment, we're going to do what feels right. We're not going to do what would characteristically be the thing that we would do. So it's not like fulfilling a character trait. It will define a character, like the way that you act all the time defines your character, but it's not, you don't act based on your character. Does that make sense? It's that same idea of the energetic resulting in the physical, as opposed to the physical resulting in the energetic, where you have the kind of ethereal, sort of unpredictable thing that results in the more predictable thing. And it's interesting. So it's sort of like, what feels right in the moment is your energetic component. And it's going to result in physical action. But as we do more and more of those physical actions, that's when people start to define character traits of us. And that's when they start to have an expectation of how we're going to act. But we don't want to be acting based on the expectation. We want to be acting actually on something more internal, which is what feels right. And that doesn't mean easy. That doesn't mean things that, are going to be inherently pleasurable or pleasurable. That is, it's very distinctly what feels like the right thing to do. And again, that's not a society sort of moral compass thing that you're supposed to follow. That's your own internal compass. And so to me, that's really what authenticity is in the moment. What is what does your internal compass tell you is the right thing to do? And to act authentically, you just have to do it. So, acting authentically is so easy, but we make it so hard because it's so easy. We think, oh gosh, it's got to be much more complicated than this if it's such a hard thing to do. And I think it gets hard because we put up all of these blocks. We put up the ideas that, again, the society expectations, the society morals, and we're always trying to really just overthink and just spend too much time analyzing what we should do, when to be authentic, we actually need to take the easy route of doing what we feel is the right thing to do. No thought, no excessive overthinking required. And what is going to be extra hard about being authentic is that, your authentic self is different from everybody else's authentic self. And that's both very scary and very freeing. And it took me a very long time to accept that, because, I can say it and it sounds, you're like, obviously I'm different than everybody else. But we don't want to be different. We don't want to take the risk of being different, in our, in the caveman days. I mean, you wanted to be part of the group. You wanted to be the same as everybody else. And I get it. I mean, that's a survival mechanism to try to fit in with the flock. But when we accept, it's all different, but that doesn't mean we're going to be kicked out of the flock. That's when we can really start to step into our authentic self. So yeah, I mean, to me, authenticity is really just showing up as yourself without any of these, without any of the expectations. And that means, doing sometimes the hard things. Sometimes it'll be the easy things. And very often it will be the things that nobody else thinks to do, which is kind of cool and kind of scary. And that's what makes being authentic so difficult, but also so rewarding. And so I also wanted to talk about something that I call the puzzle piece analogy. So because each of our, authentic selves are different than everybody else's authentic self, I sort of think of it as a puzzle piece. And, in one of those, I don't know, as a kid, I used to have puzzles that, like, all the pieces were really interesting shapes. Like, they weren't just like the knobs and holes. They were like squiggles and things. And yeah, they were just so cool. And I always think about them and how they just had all of these really unique little notches and things. And I think that we are a lot like that. We all have our own interesting notches and grooves, if you want to think about it that way. And, puzzles only fit together one way, which to a certain degree, is part of the way that I view the world, is we all have this authentic puzzle piece. We all have this authentic sort of shape that we take in the human puzzle. And we need all of those weird little grooves in order to fit perfectly into our place. And because we're all unique puzzle pieces, we can't try to be someone else's piece. Like we can't make ourselves fit into a different spot. Which, you know, if your goal is to be just like somebody else, it's never going to work, because you can never replicate all of those little tiny grooves. And also, they've already taken the spot. So if you try to change your shape to fit into someone else's spot, that someone is already in that spot, and there's not another spot like that for you to fill. So really, you're a lot better off to try to maintain your own shape, your own puzzle piece, and to fit in where you're supposed to fit in. Now, of course, nobody knows where exactly they're supposed to fit in, and that's most of the fun. Yeah, you know, so I guess that's just another way of me saying, like, maintain your puzzle piece, maintain your unique qualities, because they're so important. And if you are not exhibiting your unique qualities, your unique kind of puzzle piece, you know, we're not going to be able to finish the puzzle. You know, you're going to affect the people around you who need you to have all those funny little grooves. So maybe that's just a little bit of extra encouragement. You know, don't worry about trying to fit in because that's what other people want, or that's what you think other people expect of you, or the way that you think other people need you to act. What people need is for you to act like yourself, for you to be your own puzzle piece, not to try to be a different puzzle piece. So a little encouragement here in the morning. And what else did I want to talk about? Yeah, so and that to me is such a leap of faith, is really, I think the word is to say, okay, well, maybe we need to change our puzzle piece situation. Maybe we're actually in a location that isn't quite right for us. And maybe we think it's good, and maybe we think it's fantastic, but we feel this need to act in a certain way to stay there. And it can be very, very, very hard, very scary to step out of the way that we've always acted when we start to see that our authentic self is something different. And yeah, let me see if I can be just a little bit more clear here. So, when we're in our lives, and we're just sort of doing and going along, we often will fall into this, like I said, sort of, I think it's like a trap. It's like a sinkhole of expectations around us. And again, whether that's society or whether that's, the people that we interact with, there are a lot of pressures for us, especially in this day and age, to act in a certain way, like the social media craze. You got to always have, the perfect picture on Instagram or whatever. There's sort of, there is this pressure, and I think we all sort of are cognizant of it. Maybe we don't put words to it, but there's this pressure to be a certain way. And it can be very hard to say, hey, there's pressure to be this way, but I'm not this way, and I'm going to be myself. I'm going to take a stand and actually act authentically. Personal example, I don't like social media, and being in the business space and being in the blogging space, all of the advice that's out there, all of the I don't know, I guess like forums and communities that are designed to help people, sort of build and get into the business world, are all about, they're all about, get on social media, do this, do that, do the other thing. And it's really easy to get caught up in okay, well, I want to succeed, I want to keep pushing forward, and these are the things that I'm being told I need to do, so I'm going to try to adapt them into my character. And and I tried for a long time, and the truth is I don't like it, and I'm not good at it because I don't like it, and because I don't really want to get good at it. And for a long time I thought, that's no way, that means that I can't build my brand because everybody is saying that this is the way that it has to happen. But the truth is, that's what they're doing, and I need to show up authentically. And when I show up authentically, I actually get a lot further. I start to target, or I start to hit the right people. So maybe I'll explain that in a little bit, how that works. I guess that's sort of where we're going. But it can be very difficult to break out of this little box that we're in currently, especially if we start to realize, I don't like this. This isn't authentic to me. This doesn't feel right. But you have to jump out of the comfort zone of being where you're quote supposed to be, in order to get where you're actually supposed to be. And basically, it's kind of this, it's the same as the puzzle piece analogy. So we've got all these funny little grooves and things, and say where you are right now, where you feel that you're supposed to, of course the words always get jumbled, where your societal pressure is pushing you to be, say it's maybe just, it's a square, it's just a plain four-sided square puzzle piece, and you're trying to mold yourself into that, and you fit with all of the other kind of square, flat-sided puzzle pieces. But maybe your true puzzle piece shape is this kind of weird squiggly, funny looking lumpy thing, and maybe that's your actual puzzle piece. And as you start to live more and more authentically, and you start to show off more of that kind of lumpy puzzle piece, you're going to butt up against those flat pieces. You're going to stop fitting there, because it's not your true shape, but you're fitting into that shape. So as you start to not fit, it gets very hard, because you start to lose what felt like a good connection with the people around you. And we don't like change as human beings. We do not like it. And we try to stay where it's safe. We always try to stay where things are as we know them, in that shape where there's all those flat sides. We try to stay there because we understand it. We understand, and we like the connections that we have with those other flat-sided things. But the problem is that we're not authentic when we're flat-sided. We have to be, in order to really find our inner joy with our authentic self, we have to let our kind of fuzzy, frilly puzzle piece, or our lumpy puzzle piece, show. And what's going to happen is we are going to push away all of those flat-sided pieces that we used to fit up against when we were pretending to be something different. And that's the leap of faith, is to say it's okay that those are going to fall away, and know that an equally squiggly, lumpy puzzle piece is going to come in, and it's going to fill all of those holes for you, it's going to fit up really nicely against all of your kind of weird, lumpy puzzle piece bits. So if you're being your authentic self, you might push away, the connections that you have, but you're going to replace them with more authentic connections. And to me, that is the scariest part about trying to access your authentic self, is that transition zone where you're being your the expected self that fits into a certain box, and you're going to transition into being this funny shaped puzzle piece, and it's going to feel and I've struggled so much with this, feeling like there isn't a place for me, like nobody understands me because my authentic self is so different from everybody that I know. But the more and more that I embrace who I actually am, and the more that I let that show, the more I attract to me all of these pieces that are actually really good fits. So hopefully that makes sense. And it happens in social life, it happens in business, it even happens financially. And so I think that's, money is kind of a necessary tool in our lives today, but it can bring a lot of stress, and it can be really tempting to stay acting a certain way to keep fitting into the little box, because that little box makes money. And it can be tempting too to look at other ways that people are making money, or anything else, but ways that people are getting something that you want, and you look at them and you say, hey, I want that too, so I'm going to act in the same way. And that's actually advice that's out there, to model the people that are successful, and to a certain degree, yeah, for sure, get some ideas, get some just sort of it's interesting to see what other people are doing, but you got to stick with what feels right for you, what feels authentic to you. And it's that same sort of idea. So for me, as a blogger, trying to fit into the blogging space, and of course, I sort of look at what are all of the big bloggers doing? How are they making money? How are they running their businesses? And for a while, I sort of got stuck doing, XYZ, and I really didn't like it. I was pretty miserable. I stopped doing it because it really just didn't feel good. And frankly, I wasn't getting results. I tried it for a while and I wasn't getting results. And it was kind of like everything really went downhill. And I started engaging a lot more with what I felt was right. And things started really looking up, like everything started going well again. And it was because instead of hitting, the big bloggers that give all the advice, they're hitting, this certain audience. But when I started acting authentically, and I'm trying to, when I was doing what they were suggesting, I was hitting their audience, but their audience is not my audience. They're not the people that I'm supposed to be speaking with. I'm supposed to be speaking with you, who is listening now, which is awesome. I was able, as I became more authentic in how I showed up and how I brought myself, I was able to draw in a lot more people who were the right listeners, the right clients, people who were authentically interested in what I had to say, as opposed to me trying to force somebody to fit. It's kind of the opposite thing, where I have this weird lumpy puzzle piece and I'm trying to force people to fit into my lumpy thing, because I'm kind of drawing them in inauthentically, because I'm acting in a certain way that I'm acting in a way that someone's told me to act in order to get where I want. But if I'm not acting authentically, I'm drawing people in the wrong way. And then when, I either have to keep acting that way in order to get them to stay, And that's very hard, is to try to act as something that you're not. Or I'm going to repel them when I start showing off my lumpy puzzle piece, my actual authentic self. If it doesn't resonate with them, they're going to be repelled, and so there's no point really in bringing them in the first place. So just really showing up authentically it's so scary, but it is so powerful, and there's really this energetic attraction that happens. We're all looking for someone. We're all looking for someone or things, or we're looking for that community to build around us that fits our puzzle piece. And the thing that is that we have to show up as our puzzle piece in order for the other pieces to recognize that they're supposed to be in our community and come to us. And it's just this sort of to me, it's like this organization of the universe thing. Like, things just sort of start falling into place as we become our authentic self. And that really is the power of authenticity. So hopefully I've given you something to chew on today. And I, of course, am constantly in my journey to better understand my authentic self and who I am and how I show up in the world. And every day I just sort of ask myself, what feels right. And there's a big component of being present that's there that I think can be a big stumbling block too. And it all combines together. So I think maybe next time we'll talk about being present and presence and just how to really align with yourself in the moment and live in flow and just be acting as you. And to me, that really is one of those things that it just feels so hard. It feels like it's such a big challenge, but it's so easy once you start taking, once you take the first step and the second step, everything else just really starts to fall into place. So thank you for listening. That is the end of episode 2. Please do send in any comments or questions, things that you want me to go over more in depth. I know I've been starting with some pretty big, heavy topics, but really I'm just trying to show up authentically and give you what's on my heart, what's on my mind, and what I feel authentically I can be putting out in order to help you authentically. So so please do get in touch, and I will see you next time on episode 3, which will be today's Friday, so we're going to do it on Monday, and do try to keep my rest time intact, which is a big actually part of being present. So we'll maybe talk about that more on Monday. All right, thanks guys, have a great day.